Life in business can be a roller coaster, so what better move after you've experienced some highs and lows than to build one? This is the Architects of Business, the JOE series that meets entrepreneurs with a lifetime of roller coaster stories to share with the world. I'm Ty Genright, and today I'm meeting Ray Coyle, the man who became Mr. Tayto and opened the gates to Tayto Park. Ray Coyle, thank you very much for coming in and talking to us. What's it like running a theme park? I mean, what are the things you didn't expect about running a theme park that you're dealing with now?
Well, sometimes it can be the amount of people that come or the lack of people that come. It's very weather dependent and it's holiday dependent as well. But it's very exciting business. It doesn't feel like a business, like a hobby.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you started small and you've kind of grown it every year, haven't you? Or incrementally with new rides and new roller coasters and things like that. Is it all your own kind of imagination in terms of where you go next? Or is there kind of themes in roller coasters?
Oh yeah, well, we have a plan now where we'd like to be in 3 to 4 years' time. And this is our 8th season now, open up. So we're open seven seasons done. It took 2 years to build or get it started beforehand. And yes, we have a plan where, depending on the financials and how it works out, where we'd like to be in 21.
You know, it's almost like a metaphor for your own kind of career, isn't it? The roller coaster, because there's been highs and lows, I guess, like there is in any entrepreneur's career.
There certainly is. It is a metaphor. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I've had lots of ups and downs over the 30 years or more that I've been in business.
But I guess the theme park as well, you know, looking back on your career, it seems like you've never ducked away from a big challenge or just coming at something from an angle that nobody else would think of.
Well, the theme park was probably the biggest challenge I've ever had because it was the biggest risk. Because when you look at a piece of land in Meath outside of Ashburn and wonder about putting infrastructure and buildings and all the rest of it into it, would people come? And there was no amount of research could say they would come or not come, although it was well located for the north of Ireland and around Dublin. It still was not. I was in the middle of a recession too, so it was unbankable. So we had to take a chance, a real chance. And if it didn't work, the place was only built for one purpose, and it was no good. So we put as much money as I could put together in the middle of 2008, starting 2006, 2008, 2009. And when I bought the Tayto name, I had the opportunity of calling a great name because Tayto was well known all over Ireland.
Yeah.
And it was a good calling card. And the reverse was, if the park was successful, it'd be great advertising and marketing for Tayto.
So a double benefit, I guess.
Double benefit, yeah.
So you've obviously taken lots of risks down through the years. I want to get a sense of what it was in your very early years that put you onto the path you're on now. Because Ashburn is home, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And you came from farming stock there.
That's right. Yeah, my father was a farmer and a local publican for a while, and from 4 or 5 generations in that pub. And he was also farming. So I started farming about 74 after coming back from the US, and I hit it extremely lucky just the way things happen. 75, 76, 76, 77 was a real drought all over Europe and in England. There was none here in Ireland, and I had an awful lot of potatoes growing, and I made an enormous amount of money out of them. And then I continued with it, and like all commodities, you shouldn't, and I proceeded to lose it all. Then.
People don't think about kind of, you know, farming as a multi-millionaire industry.
This was because even in those days, potatoes were making £350 a tonne, which was a lot of money.
And how does it compare to now? I mean, I don't know how much potatoes cost.
At the moment, we're making, depending on the season, of course, about €200 a tonne.
Right.
So you're talking 30 years ago.
Yeah, so that's an enormous difference.
Enormous difference, yeah. And out of that, I managed to buy about 700 odd acres of land, pay for it, and kept growing potatoes. And eventually, after the second good year, potatoes were £12 a tonne, a disaster. So I kept farming, as they say, until it's all gone. And I was in a bad place with the banks. I owed the banks 1.2 million. then, 2 banks, and I put a farm up for sale, and I was getting 265,000 for 365 acres in Belgistan. So that wasn't near enough to cover. So I saw a guy down in Wexford raffling a boat, a 12-foot boat. I think it was 10 shillings at the time. There was 50 or 60 people in it. And I thought on the way back, I was driving the lorry on the way back, if he can raffle a boat, I'll raffle the farm. So we got legal advice and all the rest of it. And Coopers and Lybrand at the time were the auditors, and the solicitors held the money. And we came up with the idea, which we set ourselves, 4,000 tickets at £300 a ticket.
So do the sums for me quickly there.
4,000 at 300 is 1.2 million.
And that was to cover your debts?
That was to cover my debts. And in 4 or 5 months I had sold the tickets. And the draw took place in Goffs. Mike Murphy drew the winning ticket. The banks got the money and the guy got the farm. And I got started then in a very modest way of making crisps.
What a spectacle that must have been. I mean, were there people telling you were utterly mad at the time?
No.
Or a crazy genius?
No, nobody would ever say you were a crazy genius or you're utterly mad. It just looked. And anyhow, it caught on. It was one of those things that caught on. It was the first lottery that really was running the country. And then everybody wanted this 365 acres of land. Nobody wanted the second, third or fourth prizes. So they were invited to go down to Goffs if you bought a ticket. So about 4,000 people turned up. Not all the ticket buyers, but people with their partners, etc. They got a drink and the ticket was drawn.
So you put on a show for them. I mean, what was it? Mike Murphy was there to do the draw?
Yeah, Mike Murphy and Daddy Cool, I think, and Lollipops, I think, and then Frank Keane.
There might be a lot of Joe listeners who don't quite know who Mike Murphy was, but he was a big cheese at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of almost represents, the
era.
How, but also the way in which you did it. And you created a real spectacle out of it. I mean, is that something that you think has followed you throughout your life?
I wanted to sell the tickets. That was the essential thing. Because if I didn't sell the tickets, I was absolute terrible trouble with the banks. So I did, and I'd done everything possible to win the dress, but the main prize being the farm.
Some people would have been mortified, though, to kind of end their farming career in that way, and would hate that idea. That obviously didn't occur to you.
That is a very good point. Because I was well profiled in the mid-70s and people knew me because I grew a lot of farming, it took me about 6 weeks to swallow the pill or the pride. And after that, it didn't matter. I had one job to do and was to get rid of all these tickets. So I got the media were very, very helpful because we got a lot of coverage free. Even BBC interviewed me about these ticket sales. We were the first one to do it. So yes, it was hard to swallow, but at the end of the day, I had to do it.
I mean, contrast that experience with, I suppose, what you had when you were in the good years. And I mean, there was a real difference because I understand were you quite the party boy at in the potato boom years?
Yeah, well, I was 25, 26, 27, 28. So I had a good time. I was making lots of money and working hard, but making lots of money. Yes. And then you went from one extreme of having a great lifestyle to having nothing and having to tell the whole country you had nothing. So that was a difficult step, but you get over it.
And were you always confident that you'd manage to build things back up again and build yourself back up again?
No, a step at a time. When I found when I went into something, I usually started small at it and then built it up and stayed with it and try and stay with it if it was a good idea. But you're never 100% confident you can do it. But step by step, you become more assured about your ability. So,
talk to me about the path then you did follow. You went from growing potatoes to turning them into crisps.
Yeah.
Why did you go down that road?
Well, I used to grow potatoes for Tayto, and I grew potatoes for Perry Crisps, Mince Crisps. Their brands are defunct now. I was in my farming time. I saw that Tayto had 85% market share of the market here, and I reckoned if I could get 5-6% market share. I could have a nice small business. So I had a relatively good idea on how to make crisps. I researched it, and we bought a small cooker, and we started off with 8 people making chips in Ashburn.
And I mean, with 8 people and a cooker, I mean, how many bags were you churning out, and what kind of markets were you able to serve with?
Well, we're able to go to all the markets, but I mean, the volume was so very low, and it was awfully hard to sell it. So the first week we sold about 300 boxes of crisps. And it grew slowly from that. You have to work at everything. So we had a brand called Cottage, and Super Quinn, Fergal Quinn, actually saved the business because he gave me Thrift Crisps, his own brand. Mm-hmm. We made them for him, and that really was the thing that kept us going. Cottage was a disaster. I bought the Perry name. It was closed down, and I started to get some traction because Perry was known.
It must have been a big deal taking on Tayto, because didn't Tayto invent cheese and onion?
The story is that John Murphy in 1951 made a mix of cheese and onion, and that's where it started in Ireland anyhow. So yes, it was, but about 214, 215, I have buffaloes. I keep buffaloes as a hobby, and also commercially, they're the American bison. So we slaughter a certain amount of them every year. But we decided, because we had bison and a lot of people were interested in them in the media, we bring out a buffalo flavored potato chip.
Okay, and how did that? I'm gonna let you in a secret here, Ray.
Yeah,
that was my favourite hunky dory.
Well, what happened was we took them out. They started a bit slowly, and people would ask me, "What do you do?" Especially young kids. I said, "Well, we kill a buffalo every week, and we emaciate the meat, dry out the meat, and then chop it up and put it on the crisps." And the kids are looking at you, astounded. Buffalo, real buffalo. Of course it's not. Kerry Foods have made that flavour for me, and it was a blend of a whole heap of spicy ones. But the buffalo's on the front of the pack, and a storyline is about the herd of buffalo in County Meath. Went very well.
So are they vegetarian friendly?
I don't think there's any meat in it anyhow, but I doubt if there's any meat in it.
I mean, was it scary taking on Tayto as you were at the time? I mean, that brand, which, as you said, has 85% of the market at the time. There were barely any other crisps.
I never thought of it that way. I thought of it a little differently, that anybody with so much market share is going to lose a little. And if he's going to try and put you out of business, he'll have to sell his 85% at a very cheap price to put you out of business. So I feel if I could make a good product, present it well, there was room for us.
So you clearly knew the power of a strong brand, because you bought Perry, isn't that right? What did you do with it to try and kind of start making more of an impact?
We put it into foil packaging. We redesigned the packaging, put it into foil packaging, and really done a good job in the presentation. Tayto were in polyethylene at the time. So that made it look well on the shelf, and I suppose the trade, being the grocery trade, supported me because being a very small factory, and Tayto being who they were, they gave you a chance to get on the shelf.
What do you think was your biggest breakthrough moment? With the beginnings of your crisp making career?
I suppose the breakthrough was getting to buy the Perry name and then the Sam Spud's name in Donegal. That started giving me a bit of traction. And then the next step was hunky dory. I wanted to sell crisps into the UK, and a lot of British people, including ourselves, say hunky dory. It's hunky dory or okie dokie. So I chose hunky dory, and we started making them, and that caught on. So
that was your first kind of brand powerful brand that you created from scratch.
Yes.
And we still see it obviously in supermarket shelves and
that's right.
Convenience store shelves today.
It does well.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of techniques do you remember putting into play with that really kind of to grow it and to make an impact?
Well, again, it started very slow with nice packaging design, which you still see today, and we because we didn't have a lot of money, specialised or really put forward guerrilla marketing to support the brand. And the best one we done was the ladies playing rugby. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I think I do. Why don't you describe it, though, for those who don't remember?
Okay, the ad was made in Miami because nobody wanted to really do it here. So we had this very well-known photographer. He does Sports Illustrated, and he gets a bunch of very attractive-looking women togged out in rugby gear, and they endeavour to play all the various positions in rugby. So there was one particular one, a Brazilian girl, and she's taken a kick at goals, and she is very pretty, a lot of decolletage, and she's taking a kick at the goal. And the tagline under the 48 sheet for alongside the road was, "Are you looking at my crisps?" And no red-blooded man in Ireland was looking at our crisps. So, and underneath it was, "Proud sponsors of Irish rugby."
And were you sponsoring Irish rugby at the time?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Navan Rugby Club. The IRFU didn't like that.
Right.
Because we weren't a major sponsor, so that created a huge amount of reaction, and the brand rose by 22% on the back of that.
And sometimes picking a fight like that can really pay off, can't it?
Yes, but it has to be discreet. It has to be you have to pull back, and it's not totally winnable. There's some people going to be offended by it. Any guerrilla marketing you have to find a way of focusing on something that's going to get talkability.
And was that your idea? Has that kind of come from your own personality, or was it somebody else with
No.
a better idea?
Somebody else, I'm sure, a better idea. There's a ladies football team over in LA called Galaxy something, and they play American football, and they're Amazons, right? And I tried to get them first, and they were too expensive. So we decided to do it the other way. That's where the idea came from.
But what I mean is, within the business, did you kind of see the opportunity to make a splash with shall we say, a minimal investment?
That's right. Well, that's why I had minimal money to do it anyhow. And I wanted to get the best bang I could for the money we're spending.
So is that when you kind of realised that you could do this, and you could take a relatively modest investment and turn it into a bigger splash? I mean, what I'm talking about is the approach you took whenever you took over Tayto, and that the Mr. Tayto character, who we've all known on the bags for donkey's years, suddenly got a personality.
Yeah, that's right. When we got Tayto, CNC sold it, and we're losing about 2.5% average market share per year against Walkers. And it was every year, it was happening for about 6-7 years. And they decided they wanted to exit that part of their business, and they put it up and sold it. So I got it because it was very easy to borrow money in those days and all the rest of it. So then we sat down with a lot of agencies in Dublin, all the good ones, and I couldn't find something that I thought was really right for it, that would create a big buzz without spending masses of money. So Bertie Ahern done it for us.
Did he realise he was doing it?
No. He called an election in 2006, and it was a very fractious election. So we put Mr. Tayto up for vote number one, Mr. Tayto. And 2 buses went around the road with teams of people putting up the posters. And Frank, Father Jack, excuse me.
A Father Ted fame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He passed on, unfortunately, lovely man. There only last year. So he was the wingman for Mr. Tayto. So we got endless interviews about. We put an ad on about what he would do if he got into power, his plan.
His manifesto.
Yeah, the whole thing, and that went down. It was a skit. So that was the first one that really worked. And the next one was Mr. Tayto looking for a wife, because he was a man of 54 or 5 years of age, wasn't married. And we had done that, and I think we got about 400,000 applicants for a potential wife. Some of them blue, some of them not so good. But it created a star, and the final one, and the best one, was this autobiography, Mr. Tayto. It was in the bestseller list for 4 months. before Christmas. And it was just from when he was a kid. It's all written, all obviously, a lot of it made up, but the story about his life. It's still for sale at the moment, and that changed Tayto's market share.
So, Ray, do you think you can be born as an entrepreneur, or is it a skill that you are conditioned in or that you have to learn?
I don't think you're born as an entrepreneur, but it depends on your personality and attitude. And are you able, or are you? Do you want to take a chance on something, and do you want to follow through on something? But I don't think people are just born entrepreneurs or salesmen. Salesmen are fairly gifted, because not everybody can be a salesperson. But no, I don't think so. I think you drift into these things. Maybe some people are very, very lucky, who know from when they're much younger what they want to do and follow through on it, but not me.
Is there a degree of blagging involved?
There's a degree of real self-belief in what you do, and totally committed to what you're doing, and not giving up when the bad times do in business do happen.
When you look back, I suppose, on all the points at which you were taking those risks, how hard were you working at that time? I mean, was life in any way predictable, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, or is entrepreneurship a 24/7 job?
Okay, well, when the farming was a little different, but when you went into manufacturing crisps and growing the business at a fair rate, that was consuming. That was really consuming time-wise. You were all around Ireland, into the UK. We built a factory in the Czech Republic when the wall came down. I thought that was an opportunity, and elsewhere. So that was consuming, totally consuming. And it meant I was away from home an awful lot.
How much did it feel like hard work? Because, whenever we have to work hard in our kind of, those of us in employment, you kind of feel like you're working for the man. But when you're working for yourself, does it feel different?
It does. I'm sure, because I never worked for anybody else before, except myself. But no, it's hard work. It takes a lot of time, but it's enjoyable. You're getting a buzz out of it.
Were there ever any times where you kind of felt like the cards were not being dealt in your favour, and the system was holding you back?
Of course. I'd done a business over in Drogheda, which I told was going to be absolutely powerful business, and it learned me a big lesson too as well. It was pre-cooked potatoes with sauces on them, called potato cuisine, and I stayed at that for 5 years, and I poured a lot of money into it, and eventually I just had to give up on it. I was running short of money. I made some mistakes in the business on what way I pitched it, and eventually I said, we were stopping. When I said that learned me a great lesson, that it's okay, it's a failure, but when you make the decision to stop doing something, you get a great relief out of it. You know that you weren't going any further. So we closed it and moved on. Now that product is in most supermarkets 15 years later.
So do you think you were ahead of your time? Or?
Yeah, we were before our time. I started on the West Coast in the States, and we were before our time. And also we launched it at too cheap a price.
Does it make you wary about experimenting? Obviously not, because you went and opened Tayto Park.
No, no, it doesn't. Obviously, not I got my fingers burnt, but if I'm going into something, some business or other, and I find it can't be turned around, I won't be. You just have to stop it. There's no point in for the sake of pride or something else, keep a business going for the sake of just having it. It has to work.
So talk to me about the time when that light bulb went off in your head and you said, do you know something? I'm gonna build a theme park on the outskirts of Dublin based on Tayto crisps.
Well, we had Tayto a few years then, and I wanted to do it with hunky dories and make it more Western Indian type thing. So I was convinced, and it's not original. It's been done in the States. Anheuser-Busch done Busch Gardens, and there's a few other good examples around the world. So the only difference between them and me is we had to start with a very modest, small park, and we didn't have the money to really throw into it. So it was, as I said, in a recession, and people didn't think it was a great idea. I felt it was a good chance of it working. We opened it at the wrong time of the year in November 2010, and it snowed, if you remember, back in 2010 to 11. Beautiful.
Oh, that was bailout time though as well.
It was bailout. You shouldn't have opened then.
Yeah.
We made a mistake in our opening time. So nothing happened whatsoever, and the bills were coming in, had to be paid, and I said, this is a dead duck. It looks like it's going to just run out. And at Easter time, 2011, people started coming in, Easter holidays. And we got about 35,000 people in over Easter. And that year, we got 244,000 in 11. So we made money in the first year. So as a consequence of that, we've been reinvesting all the time more money and equity and any of our profits in order to get it to a certain scale.
There's not many startups can claim to be profitable in their first year.
No, but it's the first one I ever done that was profitable in the first year.
So clearly it struck some gold.
It did, yeah, because I think people wanted, certainly maybe the recession might have helped a little bit, because people wanted to bring the family somewhere, although it was still modest enough, but wanted to bring their families. They couldn't go to Portugal or Spain as much as they were used to, so bring them out to the park. There was no theme park in Ireland, and there still isn't at the moment. I'm not aware of anyone being built, but so we kept putting in the rides and trying to provide entertainment for people.
It's one of those things, what do they call it, the kind of the lipstick index, where, you know, if you can't afford the holiday to Spain, or you can't afford the expensive dress, you'll take the family for a relatively cheap day out, or you'll buy yourself a posh lipstick. Is that the kind of...
I would have said take them for a better day out for less money.
Yeah. You know, now that it's doing so well, I mean, cast your mind back to the naysayers, and you know, what kind of conversations would you have with them now compared with what they were saying to you at the time?
Well, a lot of people would have said to me, don't do this, that it's the wrong thing to do in a recession, and it's going to lose money, etc., etc. More people said, oh God, maybe it'll work, Raymond. And then they come back and say to me 3 or 4 years later, we thought you were mad, you shouldn't have done it. I'd ask him, why didn't you tell me that at the time? So we didn't want to dampen your enthusiasm. So I'm pleased that it has worked. I mean, it is a success. It's still a very modest park relative to the big ones in the US and in Europe, but it's growing. And every year there's more investment into it. Every 3 years there's a substantially big investment into it to lift it again. So we have our plans there now, as I said, 3 years, 21 of what we're going to do. And
so you've got Tayto Park, but you're not actually involved with Tayto the crisps anymore,
no,
the crisp maker.
No.
What happened there? Why did that end? Yeah.
Yeah, clearly I'll tell you what happened. When I bought Tayto, it cost 68 million to buy, and I had 40 million worth of debt, and I had an EBITDA of 12. So that's the history.
Yeah. And
how could you service that debt? So Intersnack came in and bought 15% of the company.
And that's
Intersnack is a big German multinational company in our business. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest independents in Europe, and they bought 15% of it for 15 million. But they had they put into the contract that they had a call every 3 years that they could buy another 25% of it if they wished, at a fixed EBITDA. So the extra is their option. And I was very disappointed, but I couldn't do a thing about it. It was a legal agreement. So I was very disappointed when I moved out of it a year and a half ago, because after spending 30 years, and that was a wrench there. But now I'm very pleased. I cooperate with them. We hopefully will continue to use the Tayto name. We do good business with them, and we're across the road. And there's a visit to the factory included in the visit to Tayto Park.
I mean, looking back, could you have done things differently? I mean, did you foresee that ultimately one day the company would be taken out of your hands?
No.
You didn't realise that?
No, I didn't. But remember where we were. We're in the middle of one of the worst recessions. And and that's prior to that, I thought that we got to borrow nearly 100% of the money. I didn't think. I could have left it be. And Tayto only came for sale twice over 52 years. So I decided to have a go. But the interest rate was crippling as it was going up. And I had to do something. So I had to find a partner. And my partner eventually bought the rest of the company.
Is it a cautionary tale for other entrepreneurs who kind of seek out that kind of investment? Kind of just be careful, or they might.
It depends on how well they're spread and the chance and the risk they're taking. But what I did get out of it was a great experience for nearly 30 years and money to build the park and go into some other businesses.
Talk to me about those other businesses. Where else are you putting your money these days?
On a horse.
On a horse? Well, I know you've always been a risk taker, but
No.
Anything more concrete than that?
I don't go there. I'm only joking you on that one there. No, there's ones I could talk about is that we do build some houses around Dublin. And I bought the sites some years ago, so they're valuable sites. So they're mid-price houses, 1,200 to 1,500 square foot. So that's been a good success.
And that's kind of a solid, predictable investment.
It is.
Anything a little bit more kind of risky, a bit like the Tayto days? I'm steering you towards your sun farm.
Oh yeah, you're sorry, I beg your pardon. Well, yeah, we have an application we made for a solar farm, and it's 35 megabytes, which is quite it's enough to do 14,000 houses. We got plan permission. It's appealed, and we have to wait for the appeal result at the end of this year. And then there's a few more steps to go along the line. So if the appeal is successful and we get the grid connection, et cetera, we'll have it up and running in about 2.5 years.
Listen, there must be some people who say, a solar farm in Ireland where we're not exactly blessed with frequent sunshine. Why does it make sense?
It makes sense because of the radiation. The measurements have been done by the biggest and the best people in the business. And of course, it depends on what you get, the unit price you get for the electricity. I mean, if you don't get enough, you can't build the place. We do need natural, more power, renewable power. So in the UK, there's a lot of it. All over the continent, naturally, there's a lot of it. In the north of Ireland, there's 2 or 3 farms already. But there's none down here. The legislation has to be passed. Yeah.
I was reading only in the paper recently about, Ireland talks a big game on climate change, but it's not really matched in action. Is that why you think there's such a need for a project such as your own?
Well, I think there's legislation there, or there's an agreement with the EC that we have to be 20% renewable power by 20. Now, whether that's
I don't think we're anywhere near it.
No, I don't think so. But there's going to be more. There's going to be more goals set, and wind farm or solar power. Solar power is much easier than wind farm to get planning permission for, and it's not as it doesn't look. They're only 2.5 meters high, the panels.
But you were saying there, there's 2 in the north already. Yours will be the first set of the border, and we're a few years away from actually having it operational. I mean, you wouldn't be the first person to sit in that chair and talk to me about difficulties with the planning system here.
No, I'm sure there isn't, but I mean, this I'm not the first one to get planning permission. There must be about 20 out there who have planning permission already, all waiting for a connection to the grid. And the connection to the grid then has to be an agreement for what the grid or the what you get for the power. So the steps.
Yeah, it strikes me you're a man who's always on the lookout for a new idea. Do you ever think about just kind of slowing down and putting your feet up?
No, no, it's fun. We've one very, very good one at the moment, and it may sound like a plug, but it's called Synergy.
Okay.
It's kombucha. It's tea-based.
All right. And
it's a really healthy, it's organic, vegan, 59 calories per bottle. We started 3 or 4 years ago with Joe Murphy's granddaughter who set up Tayto.
Okay.
And we're making that. We're selling it well in the UK. And we're making it for, in the UK, we're in about 800 supermarkets. So that started from nothing 2 years
That's quite a project.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you find it hard to slow down?
No, I don't. No, I'm not. Hopefully, I'm not sounding a little bit brash, but no, I enjoy what I do, and if there's something new or something of interest that you can minimise the risk at, I'd have a go at it.
Is that a trait of a successful entrepreneur, someone who just is not interested in putting their feet up and just wants to go?
Some people want to take it easier. I have to do. I'm not getting any younger, so I have to do a little bit less, but I have to do it a bit smarter.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Is that a good rule to live your life by?
Yeah. Well, that's what you should do.
Yeah. So listen, what would be your kind of key advice to anyone starting out today and hoping to match or at least mirror the path that you've been on?
Well, I'd advise them strongly not to follow my path. But if he wants to set up a business or she wants to set up a business or do something, research it very well, try and get it well funded, and even more money than you think you need if you're able to do it, which is very difficult to do because you'll always run short of money when you're setting up a business.
But listen, why do you say you wouldn't want to advise them to follow your path? Sure, look where you are now.
Well, there's some ups and downs in mine, as you know.
But don't you learn from the failures?
Of course you do. Yeah, you learn from the failures. You're not going to repeat them again. Yeah. But anyhow, what I advise people to do is if they really feel good about something, take the chance. And not be afraid to take the risk. But don't expect everything to go really well in the first year or two. And you have to make a sacrifice. Real sacrifice.
Ray Coyle, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lovely to have met you.
Thanks very much for the interview.
That's it for the Architects of Business for this week. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to our guest, Ray Coyle, our producer, Patrick Haughey, and all of the team here at JOE. Our programme is made in partnership with EY Entrepreneur of the Year. You can go to their website, JOE.ie, to learn more about the finalists for this year. And don't forget, you don't have to miss out on future or indeed past shows of the Architects of Business. You can subscribe for free on iTunes, on your favourite Android podcast app, or you can watch the show on YouTube. And make sure to check out some of Joe's other podcasts too. We've got the Hard Yards on rugby, the GAA Hour, and our movie review show, The Big Review Ski. I'm Ty Genright. We hope to see you back here again very soon. Until then, bye-bye.